Welcome to UK Crime Book Club. And this evening, I'm delighted to be joined by author Karen Hamilton, who's going to be here to talk to us about her latest book, which I'm going to pick up here, which we can see on the side is called The Contest. Karen's got her own book, so she'll show you that in a second. But Karen spent her childhood in Angola, Zimbabwe, Belgium, and Italy, and has worked as a flight attendant for many years. She's a graduate of the Faber Academy, and now does her wanderlust by exploring the world through her writing. Good evening, Karen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really, really nice of you to have me. Thank you.
That's okay. Thank you for coming. We're delighted. And so the contest is out tomorrow.
Yes.
Which is really exciting. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yes, so thank you. The contest, and like you say, this is the hardback copy out now. It's really exciting. I love the colour. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, perhaps I'm showing it the wrong way, but yeah, I'm very happy with that. So the contest is about two people who work for a luxury high-end travel company called Blackmore Vintage Travel. And every year there is this competition, a contest, and the person who wins it, who they have to overcome challenges, is ensured success. And for the losing team, they're sent back to work the next day. There's no trip. It's they're not treated very nicely, and this year, the contest is set on a Kilimanjaro climb. So not only do the characters have to climb Kilimanjaro, they also still have to look after their clients and deal with any backstabbing and any other things that come up as they both try and sabotage each other's trips. And see who's going to win the prize.
Because it's as you say, it's like, so the two sort of main characters, well, there's a few main characters, but I suppose the main two characters are Florence and Jacob, and they're sort of competing against each other, with the backdrop of Hugh, who is the boss but is also Jacob's father. I'm going to be careful like what I drop into to things, so we don't want to give spoilers. Hugh is like the ultimate bad boss, isn't he? But he's also not a particularly nice man either, is he?
No, and he's done very well for himself, and he doesn't understand why anyone else wouldn't be as successful as him. Well, I think that's part of it, but also he doesn't actually want them to be. So I think he sort of chips away at their confidence, and he also believes that you have to earn the right to be successful. So he really, really pushes them. It's a very sort of toxic work environment that he's created, but because people get drawn in by it, and then the lifestyle becomes very seductive. And he's the sort of person that I'm sure we've all encountered them, haven't we? Where if they decide to give you a compliment, it feels like you've won the world, sort of thing, because they're so harsh. And this very toxic work environment that they're in, and to keep their jobs, to keep these amazing perks where they fly around the world and do these amazing things, they have to put themselves through this contest.
So what inspired you to write the contest? What sort of gave you the idea of this, toxic environment, this competition, this sort of backstabby, really quite stressful situation?
I am. So I worked as cabin crew for many years, and long before I was a writer, I do remember flying over Kilimanjaro at some point, and I remember looking down. It's like you'd have to be in the cockpit and seeing the clouds around and the shadowy part of the mountain, and just feeling like it's amazing. It felt really drawn to it. I love the whole continent of Africa. I love so many of the countries within Africa, and I really felt that I wanted to set a book within one of the African countries, and I wasn't sure which, but then I just thought I've had, you know, friends who've climbed Kilimanjaro. I would like to have done it. I haven't, sadly. And actually, that made me think, oh, perhaps I shouldn't write about it because I haven't actually done it. And usually, I like to go off and research books by
Yeah.
actually myself. But I just felt compelled to do it. I felt like it was the right time, the right book, the right place. So I set about. Also, as well, I didn't know this was COVID, so I didn't know for how long we weren't going to be able to travel. So I thought, well, I could not set it in this, and then, you know,
Yeah.
who knows what's going to happen, kind of thing. So I just decided that I was going to be as meticulous as I could be with my research. So I badgered my poor friends to death who'd climbed it. And then, you know, as I did more research, and I'd go back to them with different questions. And I did a lot of book reading and YouTube and
Yeah.
videos and diaries and all that. But also, as well, I would go and ask people and say, like, what did you smell? Like, what could you hear? Like, you know, all the things
Right.
when they'd been there, so I could put that in, because there's only so much you can learn, you know from reading. So I just really mixed the
Mm.
experiences up.
Because
And yeah,
as I said at the beginning, I thought that you had climbed it because
thank you.
as
Yeah,
you read as you read the book,
mm,
it's very real. It's very
mm,
you sort of feel like, you know, that you're there with them. And you know, the sort of, so the research you said that you did, you know, sort of, so your friends had done it, and you know, there's that whole sort of thing as they're going up, isn't it, where you get the sickness
mm,
and that felt very almost claustrophobic, like, you know,
mm.
there were certain things that happen, which I don't want to go into detail, but certain things that happen when they're feeling so awful must
Yeah,
be just, you know, must be just add to that stress, because they're already
mm,
in a really stressful situation anyway, because you know, the people that they're looking after, they're all quite high maintenance, aren't they?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they're used to having their every wish kind of pandered to and everything. And no, thank you. It's really nice that you say that, because I know this sounds silly, but sometimes I feel like I have climbed it actually, because I
Yeah.
kind of like lived and breathed it for so long. You know,
Yeah.
so fascinated by it. So, you know, that means a lot. Thank you. Um, no, I know what you mean. They do have to pander to these people, and these people aren't the sort of people that are used to hearing the word no. So,
No, I mean, they're so, I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Armstrong, oh my God, I
mm,
just literally wanted to swipe her around the head with one of her tea bags. Like, she was like one of those people, and I'm sure we've all met them, where, and actually Florence like plays her, doesn't she, a bit, because she'll like demand like her coffee being, you know, not as strong, but then she'll just walk away with it and bring it back, and then she says, oh yeah, that's lovely, thank you, and she's done
mm,
nothing to it. So,
yeah.
you know, we've all encountered those people. Did
Mm.
you, were any of the characters in the book sort of based on people you know, or I mean, obviously you don't have to give us names,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's definitely people in there that you just think, oh
Mm.
God, I know exactly that sort of person.
I think it was more from, you know, I worked as cabin crew for 20 years, and obviously, um, when you work with the general public, you do encounter different kinds of people. And so, you know, I think travel is it's got more and more stressful over the years.
Hmm.
So I think sometimes you do encounter people when they're not at their best. They're tired, they're stressed. You don't know why they're traveling or
Yeah.
what they're. You know, same with the crew. You might have stuff going on at home. You might not feel happy being away and stuff. And I think what I noticed over the years was that sometimes you would spend an awful lot of time with somebody, fixing a genuine problem. They've obviously got a genuine grievance, and of course that's your job to help them. But sometimes even that wasn't enough, and they would push it and push it and push it, and then they just get off the flight and not sort of say anything or acknowledge that you've run round.
Yeah.
And then other people who would come up to you at the end of the flight and say, thank you so much for all you did, thank you for looking after me. And you'd think, well, I don't even know what I did, I only did my job
No.
for them. I probably made them one cup of tea or something. And I think, as anyone who's worked with the general public, that is generally the kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
And you
definitely.
do have to bite your tongue sometimes, and you also have to know when to deal with people, and when they're playing you a bit, or they're just going to push you and push you.
Yeah.
And it's learning that balance, isn't it?
definitely. I mean, yeah, I've
Mm,
worked in like public libraries for lots of
mm.
years, so I know exactly
Yeah,
about dealing with people and the public. And
yeah.
yeah, and I imagine like in a different environment for like people going on their holiday as well,
Mm,
like if you're cabin crew, that people expect almost to be sort of waited on a bit. I mean, we didn't get that
mm,
in, in that, so,
mm,
but people do expect you to give them a service, and
mm,
some people's, like you say, some people would be very happy with just to be made a cup of tea, but other
mm.
people want the world on a platter, don't they? So
Yeah,
it's
I think it's that thing now where, this didn't happen when I first started flying, but, certainly by the time I left,
mm,
everyone read on, how to get an upgrade and things like that. So they came on and there was this expectation that if they said this thing, and it'd be really hard to explain to people, actually, I don't have the power,
no,
and you know, it's very difficult, isn't it? It's that managing expectations because in the service
yeah,
industry, you are there to
yeah,
serve people a pleasant experience. That is your job, and I think
yes,
that's great. But also as well, you can't do what you're not allowed to do. And I don't know if that's the same for other people who work for companies, but you have to stick to the company policies as well. So
definitely, yeah.
you are limited sometimes to what you can and can't do. But it's whether people believe that or not.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that people with, I think some people think they can push it so far
Yeah,
that you will
yeah.
buckle eventually. It's that whole class of thing about, can I speak to the manager? Well, I am the
Mm,
manager.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
And
they're
it
like,
was,
oh,
and sometimes I do remember, like, sometimes people would, if you're working in economy class, you'd run out of the chicken or the beef or whatever it was.
yeah,
Sometimes people wouldn't actually believe that you had. They would say, but there must be something that you can get for me. And you'd say, well, I'm really sorry, there actually isn't. If there was, I would. But
yeah,
and they do you know what I mean? There was this expectation that somehow you were going to find them the thing
yeah,
that they wanted. And I think maybe that sort of came from in the book on the mountain. It's like, if there isn't marmalade, I can't remember if it was marmalade or jam. I can't remember which one it was. It was a different type of jam, I think, maybe. But
yeah,
when it was, where were the
yeah. Where
catering
was she?
going to
Where's
get?
she going to get
Where's
it?
it going to come from? Like, and I think that's probably why that's in there. It's just like, I'd get it if I could, but I don't have it.
No, no, and I think the characters were really interesting. Is that, I wouldn't say that I loved any of them. I think they were all really interesting in their own way. And so, but you had quite a few. There's quite a few characters, isn't there? You've
Yeah.
got obviously got, Florence and Jacob and Hugh, who are the
Mm,
sort of main characters. But then you've got quite a lot of sort of characters that are quite important. Some
mm,
are on the trip and some are not, I will
yeah.
say.
Yeah.
But are still very fundamental to the story. So how did you sort of create them and track them as you went along? Was it always going to have quite a large cast, or did they sort of grow as the book progressed?
I just thought there had to be enough
Yeah,
that, because there's a division between the two teams. So I kind of thought there's got to be a split between staff and clients.
yeah,
So naturally evolved, and I think that's why there's a boyfriend girlfriend in there to try and sort of split that up a bit.
yeah,
And I just thought that the more people you had to kind of look after, and to have these really, they're all difficult but in different ways because they all have to
yeah,
be managed differently. I just thought it was quite a contrast between the physical side of climbing the mountain and the physical and mental challenges. And I when I was researching, absolutely everyone mentioned the toilets. There's a lot of talk about toilets actually, and even when I
yeah,
watched on people talk about the toilets, the toilets, the toilets. So I think that's obviously like a thing for people, because that's where you are, and there's not much in the way of privacy. And so I think, to sort of have that contrast while you're dealing with all your own stuff, like where do I go to the toilet, and
yeah,
I'm feeling so tired that I just, I can't face chatting to so and so over dinner, but I have to. And the contrast between people who are doing that because it's their life's dream and they've saved up, and
yeah,
they're with that they love, or they're part of a team that they really want to be with. I just thought it's just it's just that contrast of this cast of very difficult people.
Yeah, I mean, there's they're really competitive. So basically, they do split, don't they, part of the way
Yes.
through the book. So and they obviously both want to win and both want to get Hugh's support, backing,
Approval.
approval. That's the word. That's the word.
Yeah.
That I was looking for. It's and he but so Florence makes quite a shocking discovery quite early on in the book, which actually changes everything for her on the expedition. But she doesn't share that with anybody. Well, she shares it with one person, but nobody else. But there's also Florence has also got her own secrets that have happened that she's dealing with, that happened, which is also part of BVT, the travel company, that happened previously. So it was quite I found that really interesting, was like that she's dealing with two quite big issues, and one she knows that she's dealing with, and the other one really catches her unawares. So how did you sort of write that in, that did you always sort of plan that she was going to have this sort of backstory, but then the other story, which I can't say because obviously I don't want to spoil it, but the other story is very, very, very important to the book. How did that come quite easily, or did that sort of come as you wrote in the process?
I think I just felt that Hugo's actually, so originally in one of the first drafts, I did have a section with Hugo's voice, Hugo's point of view, and I just felt like he was the sort of person that would choose his moments, and he wouldn't think about whether it was difficult for someone or not difficult for somebody. And so I just thought that was in keeping with how he would be, and to throw in like an extra added something to add to the challenge, almost as if to say, see how she deals with this. And another part of the story is that she's engaged, and her fiance is not with her, and has been on a previous trip, and been very badly injured. So she's dealing with all of this stuff, and but she still knows that she couldn't really say no when she was chosen for the challenge. And also within the company, because it's such an honor to be chosen, I just thought, it isn't the sort of place where you could say, thanks, very grateful, do you mind if I
don't mind if I don't.
It's just not, it isn't sort of the option in this kind of environment. So that's how it sort of came. And I just thought, how would you feel if you're in this situation and then you're starting to have to compartmentalize, because the only way you're going to manage and deal with clients and manage the physical challenges is by going, right, okay, I've got all this, but I'm going to have to park it. And also what so many people said to me about climbing is that it's so amazingly life changing in terms of how it makes you put things in perspective, and appreciation for your life, and the things, the very basic things that you need to survive, that we all know, but we all get caught up in our lives and all the other stuff. And so I think one of the characters, I can't remember if it's Florence or Jacob, one of them, I can't remember, at some point reflects on the fact that this is an amazing magical experience that's been assisted by these people who work really hard, the porters, the guides, the chefs.
They were amazing.
Without them, people couldn't do it. And I can't remember if it's Florence or Jacob, but they reflect on the fact that how different would it be, this experience, if you were somebody you loved and you could share it with somebody that you loved, or a friend you got on really well with, or an amazing team. But instead they're having this experience, and
it's
not, it's harder than hard.
I mean, I think the toilets that you said, the toilets are quite sort of fundamental, and I think that sort of shows the side of, because they have the posh, the tea parties and the picnics and the champagne, which you're not supposed to have, but they do. And all these things that are really luxurious, but actually the fundamental thing that
yeah,
we all have to do, you
yeah.
can't make that luxurious.
No, no,
Uh,
exactly.
so
Yeah.
that's really interesting, because it's like, that's probably, if like, if you think about even like Glastonbury and things,
Mm,
people, but obviously there is no other way. You
yeah,
can't make that
yeah,
luxurious, can you?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So it was the whole experience, for anyone who's on an income, it's just all this contrast all the time.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, I just thought, it's one of the best books that I read actually was written by a local guide who's been climbing Kilimanjaro for over 20 years. And his book was fascinating. I think it's a fascinating read, even if you don't want to climb Kilimanjaro.
yeah,
And yeah, there was a lot of insight into that. And I think, again, it's that thing where these people are working really hard and they're away from their families. And then there's this expectation from people about, you know, what kind of food they want, or this or that, rather than think,
yeah,
"Hey, I haven't carried it myself. I'm lucky to get whatever I'm given." And the fact that it's hot as well, someone's cooked it for you, that people go and get their water for them. So yeah, it's just an incredible experience where everyone's reliant on other people. It's not something generally people can do on their own.
no, I think that's is really interesting, and it's something,
Yeah.
it's not something I've ever particularly wanted to do. It's not, I'm not a climber.
No.
But actually reading the book, I found it really fascinating because of
Mm,
just of the guides. I think I found them, the fact they do this all the time.
yeah.
They've done it a number of times, and obviously they still go through similar, maybe not as bad as the first
Mm,
time, but they still go through that. And
yeah.
you're like, and I guess is that's amazing, really, because that's just a really different, you sort of think, well, why do you do that? But then I guess you think that about other jobs. So you think, why are people nurses? Why are people
Mm,
doctors? Why? I guess it's just because, I guess in some ways they have the life of being able to go and do something that a lot of people never get the opportunity to do.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. And I think, when writing fiction, and obviously, working out, there's so much scope, isn't there, to take a real world and then
Yeah.
bring it to life in a unique way, hopefully.
I'm going to say hi to Laura and Leslie, who have just said hello. So hi both. Um,
Hi.
um, so the social media. So basically, they are sort of in competition with another company,
Yeah.
and social media and TripAdvisor sort of reviews and things sort of play quite a part in the story, don't they?
Yeah.
How did you sort of think about weaving that in? Was that something that was that just to add an outside perspective, or was there another reason that you sort of brought that in?
I think it's because it, there's no way, like, everything now is recorded and monitored, and
Yeah,
for them there would be no point in doing this trip. Yes, you can put it all on after, but you wouldn't be able to get that element of, this is what we're doing now, you're coming on this journey with us,
yeah,
without the social media. And also, they want the other team to know how well they're doing.
yeah,
So, it's a great way of saying, "Oh, look at us, look what I've
yeah.
done,"
I
and
love all the hashtags.
yeah, yeah. And then obviously that's not always going to work out so well if you don't get the reaction you hope for, but if they do. So I just thought it was inevitable. Even if they couldn't do it all the way, they would
Yeah,
most definitely do it as much as they could. Even if it, also as well, they want to show what they're doing. So
yeah,
yeah, it was a good way to have it. And I also thought as well, they're not always, you're not going to get, I don't know, but I'm kind of going to imagine that you're not always going to be able to get the most perfect, you know,
yeah.
you're not going to post many videos, I wouldn't imagine, and stuff like
No.
that. So it was about managing it and then thinking, oh, I've posted this and now I've got no I've got no Wi-Fi, I've got no
Yeah.
signal. I don't know how this is, being received. And that kind of thing. I thought that was add another element of stress. I mean, these poor characters, I probably should have stopped at some point, given them a bit of a break.
But I think the thing is, there's a lot of secrets in the book that are uncovered as you go along. And I think that's always really interesting when you've got the two different groups, that there's stuff going on, the stuff that's happened before. That people are really ruthlessly, prepared to do anything to get to the top and to win over his sort of approval and his. So how did you sort of give it, when you're writing, how did you sort of give enough away? There's that thing, isn't there, about giving enough clues so that people can sort of go, okay, well, you guess who's going to happen or what's going to happen, but also being on a mountain, there's limited, things where you can't hide. I mean, you can hide, but
it's not for long.
Yeah. So how did you sort of do that without giving away massive spoilers? Was that difficult? Was that something that you did in the editing, or was that something you did as you wrote it?
I just sort of tried just to make all the characters behave as I thought they would. So I just thought that way things tend to, I mean, I do put stuff in the editing, but generally what I find is I think, I must add this in.
Yeah.
And then I see that actually I've done it subconsciously. Not all the time, but sometimes, because it's my dream to be the sort of writer that plans, and unfortunately that hasn't happened yet. Because I think I could save myself a lot of time, but the idea is that everything comes to me in the writing. So sometimes I find, or even I haven't exactly put the clue in as it was, I can see that I've set it up subconsciously. That's a really organic, I don't know if that or the right place maybe to put this, because that's in keeping with how this character would react in this situation. So although it's there, it doesn't feel, I hope obviously that's the aim. I don't know how successfully I pull it off, but yeah, that's kind of how I try and do it.
Because I think it's interesting when you sort of set up the story. So basically, as we go through the book, we've got sort of Florence's perspective and we've got Jacob's perspective. Did you write it, because you said you're not a planner, so did you write as one continual story, or did you write their stories separately and then sort of amalgamate them?
I think in the first draft it might have just been Florence.
Yeah.
And it might have done Hugo, I think. I can't remember exactly, but and then then it just changed it so that Jacob had his own voice, and then split the chapters. And then him being in the third person came through the editing process, to sort of just try and give that bigger distinction. And also I thought I try and do something different with each book, and I'd never written from a male point of view before. No. So I just thought, I like to try and do something different that I haven't done. I also thought as well that because it's two teams and two leaders, you really need both their points of view. Otherwise, I just thought the other teams they're
just go, you're just going to be mentioned that they've gone off, and then you're not going to know what happens.
What's really going on. And actually, when I was researching it, so I didn't really know anything about the climb at all before I started researching. And actually, I did say to all of my friends afterwards who'd climbed it, I'm sorry that I wasn't more like woo when you came back, because my driver was like, oh, that's great. I didn't realize what they'd gone through. I didn't fully appreciate, what I'd done that. So I was like, sorry, I wasn't, more.
I apologize for not being quite so excited about you doing this massive thing.
I didn't realize, because it's big, but I didn't realize how big. I realized that because not everyone summits, how it was even more amazing that they did that. So I did say sorry, but one of my friends had climbed on I don't know if my pronunciation is correct actually, but the Rongai route, which is on one side of the mountain, and then the others are more together. So originally I think I had Florence climbing that route, but then I realized, because I thought in my head, oh well, they can go, this team and this team can go between each other's tents, I don't know, do whatever it is they want to do. and then I just realized that actually there's absolutely no way that they'd be able to go from this route to that route. And also, even if they're really close, they're going to be too exhausted to go running around, in between each
Yeah, they
other's
can't just like pop in and go, hi.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought, well, this isn't going to work because, I did think at some point of whether I should put a plant in each team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I just thought, what I can do is they start off separately, because then I read about them, the Machami route, and that they meet at some point. So I thought, well, that kind of works. So they start off separately, and then they meet. So you've already got this separateness, and who's this and this team, and who's this and this team, and then when they come together, the dynamics change even more. And also at that point, they've been climbing for 2 or 3 days. I think it's day 3 that they get together. And it is a bit of a clash, because obviously some people in the group are suffering more than others. And it just felt like a better way to have the characters all be together at some point,
because I think there's also infidelity, we can say, I think, happening within the group, in a couple of different guises, really. And quite early on, one of the characters, I'm not going to say who it is taken ill.
Yes.
And I had all my own theories about, which I think is quite clever, because I was like, there's going to be all that this is. And so you do drop a few like red herrings in every now and again, because I sort of thought, I knew what was going to happen with that, and that I was completely wrong. So I quite like that. I always like that in a book. I like to be surprised. So I was thinking, I can see I know where she's going with this. This is going to happen, and then it didn't. So no, I always think that's really good. Did anything surprise you when you were writing it? Is there anything that you that you can think of in the book that you thought you didn't see it coming, and then it you thought, that's
I think there's kind of one scene where I thought, where Jacob gets this great big giant tent, marquee, that he actually has to pay extra to get carried up, and I don't think you put bean bags in it or something, and something that carried up because it's quite high up at this point. And I remember thinking, I don't know if this is like too ridiculously, OTT, like how does this work? But then I just thought, no, it's in keeping with what they would do. They need to push themselves to do more, to show off more, to do stuff. And also as well, I think on some level, I did feel sorry for Jacob at some point, because I thought, despite the fact that he's not a great guy, not the sort of person you want to hang out with, and he's very selfish, I thought, he is just trying to win his father's approval.
He is sort of a love to hate character, isn't he?
Yeah. And so I think I felt more sorry for him than I thought, because you thought
you were going to.
And and also I think for the characters at certain points in the story, they need to decide, okay, am I going to continue down this path, or am I going to just go, do you know what, it's never going to work, or I don't need to put my energy this place anymore, so I'm going to try and change around. So it is that, because I also think I never know at what point they're probably going to do that, because they put up with what they put up with for a while, and then change tactic.
I mean, actually saying that I didn't like any of them, there is actually some of the characters that I didn't dislike. Sarah I sort of felt sorry for. So she's Hugo's wife, isn't she? Number 3?
I think she might have been 4
she might have been 4,
three.
So he's not Mr. Monogamy, is he really? He's quite an interesting character, and I think she sort of surprised me, because I thought she was his wife. I thought I wouldn't like her particularly, but actually she wasn't. She was actually, I think she had some redeeming features, particularly, as you go through the book, you realize actually what she's putting up or put up with as his wife. It's not all, and she's actually come along, they've got young children, and she's sort of come along because she wants to try and make their marriage work.
Yeah.
So she's, she doesn't really want to be there. She's sort of there because
No,
she
she's
feels
quite
that she
torn
has
because
to
she
be.
wants to be at home with the kids, so
Yeah.
she's torn. Yeah.
So but yeah, so how did you sort of think about the other trip? Because obviously the other trip is quite fundamental to the book without giving and Florence obviously wasn't on that trip.
Mm.
But as you say, something happened, and her fiance, who was injured badly,
Mm.
and we find out that she sort of wants to find out more about that as
Yeah.
we go along. So how
Yeah.
did you sort of, was that always, when you sort of had the idea of the contest of them, was there always going to be that sort of, that this is going to happen as well? Because that's massively a part, isn't it? That's a
Mm.
fundamental bit of the story.
Yeah, I think I just thought that it would make her very torn because she does sort of, she wants to be there and she believes it's the right
Yeah.
thing, but at the same time, not everything adds up for her.
No.
So she knows she's not going to get to the truth sitting in the office back in Kingston.
Yeah.
And this is her chance, when everyone's guards are maybe let down a little bit because they're tired or whatever, to do a bit more digging.
Yeah.
And several of the characters actually were on that same trip. So there's Mr. and Mrs. Armstrong and Casper. There's a few of them that were on that same trip.
Yeah.
So she although she's spoken to them in the past about what happened and the stories match, she's looking for sort of gaps in someone's story to see there is more to it than she thought.
Because she is quite ambitious, isn't she? She is,
Mm.
she's, even though, because I mean, actually, for some people, the fact that had happened, you would maybe not want to do that. But she is, she does seek his approval. She does want to be better than Jacob, and even though she's got this, this sort of she wants to uncover the truth about also what happened. So so that was, I found that was quite interesting, and actually that is massively pivotal, isn't it, to the whole plot? Really, is that sort of her backstory and what happened, and as we find out, well, as you'll have to find out as you read it, because I'm not going to tell you. It's really interesting, sort of uncovering that. So was that quite a challenge to sort of get it all? Did you sort of think, what came first, I guess, is the murder, well, I guess it is a murder, or there is murder.
There is.
Murder or the mountain.
Yeah. Well, I thought, you kind of, you have to have a murder in there, don't you?
Yeah.
But, some poor person has to, pay the price for being in a thriller.
Exactly.
But yeah, it was you'd have to think, well, why would somebody murder someone? Why would they do it?
Yeah.
And how on earth would you get away with it in an environment like that? And I think the kind of like, with Florence as well, her fiance was very supportive of her,
Yeah.
the work and that, and so she partly feels that she needs to do all this digging to sort of I don't know, honor's not the right word, actually. I don't know if honor's the right word. I don't really know. But yeah, because he had so much respect for her and encouraged her career,
Yeah.
and she him. So she almost feels like, if he was gonna, he would encourage her to go on this trip, and he would encourage what she's doing. And I think that kind of motivates her a bit as well.
Because I guess basically she wants to almost repay his sort of support. By finding out who how he became to be where he is. I guess. So I think that's the thing, isn't it? She wants to, she's desperate to sort of find out what happened, And like you say, you know, people let their guard down, you know, the odd words sort of slip out and things happen as you know, as they get to the, because actually that's when I think that last bit where they, you know, the last few before they get to the summit, and it becomes really difficult for them to walk and talk, and the sickness and all that thing is, it's really quite claustrophobic, isn't it? Did you sort of find that when you were writing it? Did you feel like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to get off this mountain?
Yeah, and also I was thinking, so someone I spoke to said that he had hallucinations, and that he kind of didn't, you know, you don't sort of care about living or dying. You're just like, oh my goodness, I'm in this situation, and it's just,
Yeah,
you know, you're trying to put one foot in front of the other, and it's the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, and it's cold and it's windy,
yeah,
and you can't see very far ahead because you're doing it in the dark, because you leave to go up to the summit at midnight, and so all you see are the lights ahead. And several people told me that they saw people being carried by the guides, either trying to get them if they were close to the initial, I think it's called Stella's Point.
yeah.
You think I'd know all this, wouldn't you? You think I'd remember? I'm writing another one, and then I sometimes think, who?
Yeah, it must be really hard to keep track.
I sometimes think it's Stella's Point. I think it is Stella's Point. Which I would have known off by heart a few months ago. But
Yeah,
so some people did carry them up to that point, because at that point they still get a certificate if they didn't get to the actual summit. So
yeah,
these poor people that really want these people to succeed, so would either carry them up to Stella Point, or they'd have to carry them down because people just didn't make it. And what's so amazing that I learned from all the research I did in these guides, they're so experienced and so amazing at what they do that they can tell almost who's going to make it and who they need to get down now. And
really.
yeah,
Wow, yeah, because I guess some people, I remember sort
mm,
of seeing, you know, on things like Comic Relief and things where,
yeah,
you know, some people just don't, you know, they have to sort of stop, you know, halfway, or because they can't deal with the sickness or the fatigue or all those things. And I mean, it's you just can't imagine it really, I guess,
mm,
unless you've done it, and to be doing it when you've got all this other stuff going on as well,
yeah,
is really amazing. I mean, I mean, they're amazing. I think, you know, the
mhm,
what they must put, you know, what they put themselves through
yeah, yeah.
for other
So
people is amazing.
dreams, yeah, yeah, it is. And to sort of make those judgment calls, because they are life and death decisions, you know.
Yeah,
You know, people do lose their lives doing it. So yeah, I think yeah, it was just so it was very claustrophobic. And I also thought, you know, what, you know, for each of the characters, at what point do you go, do you know what, I don't care, I don't
no,
care.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Think at some point, don't they, sort of go, do you know what, I don't care, that, you know, I don't care.
Yeah,
um, so not all of them make it up, which seemed to sort of be pretty true to life. But
yeah,
also what people said to me is that, you know, by the time you're there, the thing that really surprised me, that it can be really, really crowded on the mountain. So
yeah.
there's all these different tour guides from all these different countries and all this. So it's actually quite busy. So
It's
when you're up,
remarkable, isn't it? It's just like, yeah,
yeah, yeah, where you think, here I am, and actually
yeah.
you're waiting to take your photo, and you have to take this photo because, you know, you're there. You're there.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got to do it.
but you're not kind of like looking around. Well, you kind of are apparently a bit going, yeah, great, but you're so tired and you're so, you know,
Disorientated. Yeah.
you're just like, yeah, photo, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, back
Yeah.
down, you know. Whereas, you know, I suppose in my mind you're there, you're like, oh, you know, you know, and that isn't.
Yeah. No, I think that the fact that you've got that euphoria, but I imagine you haven't got that euphoria because, like you say, most of the
Mm,
time you're just really grateful that you're there, but you've
yeah,
still got to come back down again. I mean, that's the
yeah,
thing. It's like, I think for me, it would be like, how do you, you know, once you're up there, you know, you've got to still come back down.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not like, you know, when you go to some places and you can get the, you know, like when we went to Snowdon and you can get
mm,
the tram back.
yeah, yeah. We do like a really long walk, and then there's a pub at the end,
Yeah.
taxi number or whatever. You can get an Uber. Doesn't, yeah? Do you know what I mean? It's not like that, is it? You're still
No, no. Oh, let's go to the pub
somewhere.
afterwards.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, no. I mean, it's brutal up and it's brutal down.
mm,
So I mean, and I guess also as you're going up, you've got that sort of will. I mean, I guess
Yeah,
that you want to get there. You know, you're pushing yourself on. So it must be,
yeah.
in some ways, it must be really, I guess on the way down, you just want to get down. So you just do it.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. Has it made you want to do it? Do you want,
I Yeah, I do want to. I do. I actually do. And then once I'd finished the book, and then I thought, I wonder if that sort of desire will go, because
yeah.
obviously I don't want to be up there and thinking, oh, I wish I'd put this in the book. So I sort of had this thing, but I do. I still do. I'm scared because I have Raynaud's, so I'm scared of the
Oh,
cold. So I
yeah.
manage that, but I'm sure people do. There must be ways to sort of manage that. But I I think because I what appeals to me about it is what everyone said to me about that life-changing experience, where it just gives you a perspective on life that you
Yeah.
forget,
Yeah.
that you're there, and we all have like these worries and concerns and dramas or whatever it is we
Yeah.
will.
Life.
And yeah, life, yeah, basically. And to have those few days perspective where that's where you are and there's nothing you can do, and you can either go with the process,
Yeah.
um or with experience rather.
Yeah.
um I think it's a shame that there's Wi-Fi on the, you know what I mean? That's quite a recent.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. I was like, really?
Mm, because I think, part of the appeal for me would to be just go
Cut
and,
off.
yeah, and then know that if there was like a real emergency at home or something, there would be ways to contact. But
Yeah.
to be totally off grid, but I don't think there are many places in the world now
I
where
don't
where
think so,
that is.
really. I think
Yeah. Mm.
the place we used to go on holiday in North Wales used to be quite bad.
Yeah, yeah. So
If you want to go
that's
to North Wales, that was quite sort of isolated, and which was quite interesting.
you
Um,
do get pockets, you get pockets all round, don't you? I'm in
yeah,
Hampshire, pockets where it disappears. But yeah, I think it,
you're
for
not away from it for very long, are you? Unless you
no
sort of like sit in a
round
in
and
a place. Yeah. So Karen, this is your fourth book.
yes.
Um, so does it get easier to write? Is it harder to come with, have the ideas become easier to come by or harder as you've gone, through your books?
It kind of varies. You see, I love the best process for me of writing is editing. I absolutely love editing. I love it when I get my editorial notes from editor. I That's like
You must
when
be
I'm at,
quite rare in that, because I've not
yeah,
many people like
yeah,
that.
I know it's really weird. So I actually struggle with the initial getting the story down, like the ideas and the when's this going to happen, and get a few drafts, and when I
Yeah,
get my editorial notes, even when I first, it takes me a while to sort of try and understand and look at the changes, and then I love getting my teeth into them. I think, right, okay, so how am I going to make that work, and how am I, and I
yeah.
love working through them. And I'm probably quite annoying in as much as I could edit forever. So my poor editor, he's very patient. He must think at some point now.
Just stop editing. You've done it
Stop.
now.
Because if he said let's do another round, I'd be like, yay. But so yeah, that's the point, that I love it. And I also think for me that's when perhaps some of like the more the layering comes in.
Mm,
That's the point when I go back and think, oh, I need to put this clue in, and then think, oh, that's kind of set. Do you know what I mean? And then
yeah.
it assures me that the story, even like if the initial drafts are rubbish, that subconsciously the story is there, the characters are there, the story is there.
And
It's
it's the
just about,
editing, yeah,
yeah,
bringing that out. Yeah,
yeah,
that's interesting, because not many, I must admit, not many people love, I mean, some people really, really hate it. Some people have to like just put it away for a
mm,
few days, and because they take it quite personally. So you
mm,
obviously don't, yeah, for you it's very much part of the process.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it's,
process that you like.
yeah, for me, what I love is I love working out. So if my editor said to me something like, he's very polite, so he wouldn't say this, but if he said this bit isn't working,
Yeah,
um something about this, what I'd love to do is think, okay, how can I make it work, and what is it that isn't when someone's reading it? So I like kind of
yeah,
figuring that out and putting that all together.
like a puzzle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
really, really enjoy that bit.
That's interesting. So you've traveled quite a lot, haven't you? And you've also lived in, as we said at the beginning, you've lived in many countries as a child. Do you find, I mean, definitely with the last two books I've read of yours have definitely been inspired by sort of travel. Does that is that very much fundamental for you when you're writing? Is it, is that sort of something that you sort of immediately think, right, I want to do that here, or
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. And I can't say much about my fifth book that I'm writing at the moment, but that's very much the travel themes in there again.
Yeah.
I think because it's been such a part of my world for so long, and I loved being crew. I love being a writer, but I also love being crew, and a lot of my friends are still work as crew. And I forget, even though I left 10 years ago, I kind of forget that I'm not sometimes. So when I'm with them, I speak as if I'm still part of it. So I think maybe that thing, I still dream that I fly. I still have those anxiety dreams where I'm running through an airport without my suitcase or whatever it is, my passport, whatever it is, where I've missed my call time. We're on the flight. Where are you? And I'm outside. So
you see the air go up in the air.
Bye. Sorry. So I think for me, most likely, that's kind of probably where, I mean, you never know, do you? But for the moment, that's kind of the theme that I'm sticking to.
Would you go back? Would you ever go back to being crew again, or are those days gone?
No, I think it's tempting. I just don't know how I'd fit it in with, sort of family life, 3 teenagers. Obviously they're not young anymore, but they still need me to be, taxing
around. Yeah, exactly. Yes, mum's taxing.
The tiredness might be more of an issue now. I do like my bed. I'm one of these really lucky people that can sleep. So I like to go to bed with my book. Actually, the older ones come and say goodnight to me now instead of the other way around.
I know.
And I'm there in bed with my book, my Kindle, sometimes my glasses, like reading away. But I mean, I always think in life, you never know, do you? You never know.
No, and it's nice that you still, you've got your friends who still do it, and that's something. I think I think it's interesting, as you get older and your children grow up and you do things, is that life takes you in different directions sometimes to what you think they're going to be. So maybe maybe Kilimanjaro will be on your list.
Yeah, I do hope so.
So coming back to the book, because I'm just seeing the time, did you have a favorite character to write? Who was your favorite to write in the book?
That's a good question. I wonder, actually. I think from the secondary characters, I found Casper quite fun because he's he's just so entitled and doesn't think and just says these things, and it's just so far removed from my life that I did find that quite sort of fun.
I can see that. I mean, he is really annoying as well.
And he doesn't kind of even seem to care or have any kind of awareness that he is. So he was quite interesting to write. And then sort of Imogen, who got on some people's nerves. It was just putting those little things in that some people would find difficult to be with. So
I think there's a different annoyance for everybody, because like Mrs. Armstrong rubbed me up the wrong way completely. I was just like, oh, shut up. You're just really
some people going to rub against each other, so I just tried to make them all a bit different so that different things would annoy different ones. So that was quite fun. But I did enjoy being kind of in both their heads, so if I was doing a Jacob chapter, then I would think, okay, so what would he think? And it would be he thinks bigger in terms of more showy offy than Florence did. And Florence there, she's more a bit like, okay, I'm going to do this, but should I do it? And they're all
he's just like sort of, I guess he's had quite, although he's had quite, he's had a privileged upbringing, hasn't he? But he hasn't had the one thing he really wants, which is the sort of, love of his father, and so I think he's quite complicated, and as much as that he's annoying, but you say, I think I had empathy for him, particularly as you go through the book and you realize that he's got his own demons and
Yeah.
things that he hasn't been able to sort of deal with. And obviously, I'm not going to say anything about the ending apart from that everything sort of ties up, and it's got a good wholesome rounded up. I don't like loose ends.
No,
So,
thank you.
but actually, there's some real surprises, and I think I think you always sort of it's really difficult with this one because I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to say anything else, but I'll say to you afterwards what. So but
Thank you.
So you said you can't tell us anything about book 5, so you're writing book 5 at the moment. You can say that, but you can't say much about it. So will that be
it's set in the it's very much travel based again, and one female character this time who struggles with not right and wrong, but so I haven't made it sound great, sorry. I don't really know
about you haven't edited it yet, so so when will that be out? Is that a couple of years? Is that like a year or next year?
So there's not it's stages, so we'll have to see about. But it's fun to have my teeth into something else, and I'm excited. Well, I'm always excited about all of them as they come out. But it's I hope everyone enjoys it. So
it's out tomorrow. Before you go, what are you reading at the moment? Are you reading anything at the moment? Do you have a sort of a go-to author to somebody who you see and that's like, right, I'm buying that because it's written by them?
I have. I'm a real I read a lot on Kindle at the moment. I do, because of my eyesight and everything, being able to read in the dark and everything. And I tend not to read one book at a time. I tend to through a few.
I can't do that on a Kindle though. I can only do it with real books. I can't.
So I'm reading a lot of non-fiction at the moment, so my mind's gone blank as to what I am actually reading.
I know. I should have asked you. I should have given you the heads up. I normally do.
I'm actually reading a lot of non-fiction. I think because I went, I go through phases where I read so much, and then I almost sort of come away for a bit. I've been reading like Donna Ashworth's books of poems, and that reason I found that really, I think sometimes when life's been busy or stressful, it's quite nice to come back and kind of read things that are about. I read a lot of health books as well. Sorry, I'm not. I'm been very good the last few.
No, I mean, so the book's out tomorrow. So if you've got any sort of things sort of lined up for publishing day, what are you planning to do tomorrow? Anything exciting?
I'm not. There's bits and pieces. I was going to be going to Harrogate tomorrow, but I'm not going to be there now till Friday night because it's my youngest son's leaving assembly at school.
Oh, you can't miss that.
No, exactly. No, I'm already getting the tissues ready. So I thought it was going to be like next. I thought it was going to be Monday or Tuesday, but it wasn't Friday. So I've changed all that. So tomorrow I'm just I will sort of have a nice coffee and celebrate a bit. But to be honest, it was a lot of packing and getting ready for me and my son because he's then going away camping. And so I'm just gonna have a nice day. An amazing book launch last week, so that was nice.
I saw on Twitter you were so was it Nikki you're with? I've got I think she's on next week, I think.
Nikki, she's absolutely so I'm just gonna sort of do that and then have a drink or two at Harrogate and catch up with whoever's there. So it's sort of like a long celebration, as it were.
Nice. I think that's nice. That's a nice celebration. Well, I hope it goes really well.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us this evening. And the contest is out tomorrow, so good luck, and I'm sure it'll be a great hit. I mean, I loved it, and I think everybody who if you've ever thought about climbing a mountain, then you can read the book. You can read the book and do it without climbing it, which is good.
Without Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you. Oh.